Let's talk about a feature that's not new, but it's really cool to work with. It's called Refine Edge, and it really helps you take a selection after all your work with some of the basic tools and make it better. So let's open up two things here. Let's open up this one, Refine Edge, and hold the Shift key down and reopen up Magic Wand with the pyramid. So we can double click and open up both of those. Let's start with this one. What I want to do is I want to remove her from that background, or actually remove the background from her, and I want to put her in front of something else, like maybe the American flag. Now, I've done this before with this image, and there's so many different ways that we can do this. But the first goal is to make a rough selection of the girl. But I'll tell you what, it would be easier to make a selection of everything else, I think, because of the homogeneous nature of that background, and then reverse the selection. Pick up your Magic Wand tool. Let's try it with that first. Magic Wand. Let's change our tolerance to something about, like, let's try 45. Default's 32. I'm going to get right about here and click. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down, do a couple of clicks around these edges, maybe even get in here, Shift click that little area, and maybe this one here. It's a rough selection, and that's fine. Let's come over here, keep that Shift key held down, and let's see if we can get into a couple of these areas. Actually, that's too much. I'm going to undo. We'll leave that one alone. Okay, that's a rough selection. Actually, we have one more area I missed right there. There, I think that just about does it. Now go up to the word Select on the pull-down menu and go down to Inverse. Okay, we've got the basic rough selection. Now, if we come over here and make a mask, it's going to be a really poor thing. So before we make the mask, we're either going to click the word Select and go down to Refine Edge, which is awesome, or we're going to go Refine Edge right here. Just click that button. Now, that is not what I would consider to be a good selection if we're going to use it. Refine Edge has a couple of features we can use here. For example, they have something called, and I love this, Smart Radius. Watch what happens when I move Smart Radius. Look at that. Isn't that cool? It actually starts making the selection for us. Now we can turn that back off again, and we can use this tool right here, which is a paintbrush. I'll use my bracket keys left and right to make it a little bit bigger, and we can paint around those edges. What are we exactly doing when we do this? We're saying to the computer, you know what? That edge is all right, but why don't you look in the areas that I'm painting and see if you can find, maybe just a little bit better of a selection for me? And so we just paint down it like this. And it just gets all these really cool areas. It's an amazing tool to work with. It really is. Refine Edge. Okay, now we have some other options. We'll look at those in a minute. Basically, what I want this to output to is I want to output it to a layer mask. But you can do a new layer with a layer mask, new document, or new document with a layer mask. You've got a lot of options. I'm a big masking person. So I'm going to say, give me a layer mask. If you want to, because you like your settings, you can say, remember what I'm doing here, and give it to me the next time I come through. I'm going to click OK. Now, I'm not all that happy about what's going on over here, but I'm going to move her over anyway. Maybe something about like that. And look at the edge and look at her hair. We started out with a Magic Wand selection that looked like we'd cut it out with a pair of scissors. And Refine Edge helped us make that into a very nice selection. If what you're trying to find is different than what you're trying to eliminate it from, like I shoot a lot of models and I put them against backgrounds that are different than their hair color to make sure it's easy for me to get rid of it. Refine Edge can really help you do that, but we're not done. Let's come back over here to the Magic Wand one. That's the Great Pyramid. Now, if you didn't save the mask that you made, I want you to go into Channels, because I've got it right here for you. Okay, there it is. Now, it's kind of rough on the edges, isn't it? It's kind of harsh. In years past, before Refine Edge, what I would recommend to you is probably do something like go up to the word Filter and go down to Blur, and I know I've taught lessons like this, and go into something like a Gaussian blur and soften the mask up, not that much. which give it a little softer edge. But you have to experiment to get it right. We're not going to do that. Let's come back out of here. We're going to select the mask. Now let's go back to RGB, which brings our image back. Hold down the Control key and click on the mask. That's the quickest way to make that mask a selection. Go back to Layers. And what we want to do is inverse the selection because we want the sky out of the picture, not the pyramid. So we'll say Select, and we'll go into Inverse, and then we'll make our layer mask by clicking this button right down here. Now with that done, double-click on the mask right here, and it will open up the properties. In Properties, we have a lot of control over this image. One of those is density. Now, density is the density of the mask. So if I come over here and lower that all the way down, we lose the mask. But I'm thinking those clouds are a little bit too happy and bright for this image, even though that is Egypt. I am going to lower that down just a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to blend the original sky into these clouds and make it look a little bit, well, less intense. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to feather here, although I could. Now that's feathering the mask. Go into Mask Edge right here. And in Mask Edge, you've got all the controls. For example, we could go painting down the edges if we wanted to, just like we did with the hair, and see what that does for us. But we also have adjustments right here. We can click Smooth. Now what Smooth attempts to do is it attempts to smooth out the jagged nature of those edges. And a Magic Wand tool does a pretty jagged edge, I want to tell you. So we could use maybe a little bit of smoothing. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it does actually help that edge. I don't want too much, though. Maybe something about like that. Now, we're not going to feather, but I'll show it to you. Feather the edge. We can change the contrast. Now, watch the edge, especially around the cap at the top of the pyramid when I change contrast. It's real hard to see. It's very subtle. But what it's doing is it's making that edge a little bit more firm and not so soft on the edge. So I'm going to leave contrast at about 25. Now we can shift the edge too. As you can see, it's pulling it in or it's pushing it out. And sometimes, because of the way the selection was made, you need to adjust that in or out just a little bit. Decontaminating the colors helps the edge more blend in to what's surrounding it. In this case, we have a lot of difference going on, so you're not really going to see much help there. We can leave that one off. Now then we can choose the same options. I just want to put this back into the layer mask again and click OK. And there you go. Using Refine Edge is an amazing tool. It's not new. And the controls are essentially the same as they were a version or two ago. But the algorithms behind it that make it work are actually getting better. And don't forget, when you create a layer mask, you have control over that mask right here. On to the next.